The greatest football match of all time occurred in 1985. 1985 was the year when the greatest football match was played. It was a match involving two sets of classes in staff school. Class 5 was constituted of people who were under Coach Salami, who was the coach of the football. And Class 6 was a selection of the best of Class 6, captained by either Erobo Bubu or Kayode Meshe. I was in Class 5 in that year. Before the match took place, Erobo Ugbobu, who was a neighbor of mine, was always bragging of how they were going to beat us, like close to a month before the match was played. He said they were going to give us a dozen. They were going to beat us. He was always bragging and boasting. Erobo Ugbobu was a genius in mathematics and basically a highly advanced thinker. He was able to even though he was just 11 years old, he was able to dissect plays in the English League way back in 1986. He could dissect plays, what people should do, was actually criticizing players at the age of 11. But me, I just knew how to play. I just knew how to shoot. I didn't know the semantics of football. I just knew what I needed to do and what needed to be done, not from a coaching point of view, but from a player point of view. So Eroba would boast of how they were going to give us a dozen, and I remember him saying that the only two players we had on the Class 5 team were myself, Tayo Oloko, and Ejime Osifo. Ejime Osifo was a brilliant player, and he said those were the only people that could give us a hard time, and it happened to be right. Now, I remember the day it happened. It was basically, I think the match started around it was after assembly. It was in the morning. It was maybe like 8:30. I remember the match. The whole school, maybe a whole school of basically 1,000 pupils trooped out to watch the match. I remember the first half. First half was basically a good first half. I almost scored. I hit the bar. I think the ball floated from the left, and I sort of like backheeled and hit the bar. The long story short is we were beaten 10-0, too short of his boast of they were going to give us a dozen. What I learned in that match was this, that you really have to give your all, and I really gave my all in that match. I was everywhere. I was in attack, I was in midfield, I was in defense. Our team, Class 5, were basically around, where people were 10 years old, but I think I knew more than most people, and I was running in midfield, I was running in midfield attack, I was running in defense. I think at the age of 10, I almost had a heart attack because during the match, I bunched myself to catch my breath. I was everywhere. I was from attack to defense. Was most of the goals they scored, I was the defender that they dribbled to score. I was between them, the last man who scored, and the keeper. And we only had 3 chances to score. There was a shot I fired that the keeper saved, a brilliant shot. The keeper, I don't know how the keeper got to it. He saved it. It was a shot to the left of the post, and he dived and saved it. And the next was from a corner kick that came in, and I sort of like the ball came behind me. I flicked my leg behind, and the ball hit the bar. And the last chance fell to Jimenez Osifo, who fired the ball, and the keeper saved it. I think that was probably the greatest match I've ever played and I've ever witnessed, because I've never seen a player who gave his all. I gave my all. That's why when I watch football, I'm only interested in people who give their all. I remember in 2013 when Manchester United played Barcelona in Wembley. That's when I stopped being a Manchester United fan, because Manchester United didn't give their all. When Rooney didn't give his all, the whole thing just collapsed. And I felt if maybe David Beckham wanted to play for Manchester United, but Ferguson was saying something about David Beckham being too old. I believe if David Beckham had played that match, he would have been able to float the ball in short. Man U wouldn't have needed a midfield, because at that stage, you couldn't play Barcelona in the midfield. So I felt the only way to break down Barcelona was to get someone who could pass the ball, who could, like a David Beckham, who would float the ball from between defense and midfield. And you have maybe two players, Rooney and maybe Tevez, standing at the center circle to push Barcelona back. So the long story short is, if I, at the age of 10, almost had a heart attack and I was running everywhere, I can't watch a sports athlete who can't give his all. So I would say my performance was probably, even though we lost and I didn't score, I think my performance was probably the greatest performance I've ever witnessed, because I gave my all.